All right, what's up, guys? Welcome to an edition of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. I'm your host, Brandon Choi. And as you saw in the post, we will have an episode that's dedicated to a film that's generating, or I should say, a series, I might say, that's generating a lot of buzz, miniseries known as Ithaca. So let me bring on our host, star of the film, Jay Saunders. Give me a moment. Hey Jay, what's going on, man? How you
Hey,
doing?
hey, I'm walking and talking. How you doing, brother?
I'm terrific. All right. So let's just hit the ground running. You have four parts. I know the fourth portion of this miniseries hasn't been released as of yet. Only the public has been able to see the first three pieces, but I have seen the fourth.
Right.
So that being said, can you talk a bit about the genesis, of this project?
Yeah, it's well, I mean, it's tough to say because I'm trying to figure out like how many spoilers I want
I
to give
know,
away,
right?
you know?
Yeah.
Well, we started this I started the project with my wife. It was a passion project about I want to say close to 7 years ago, man. And it was just a project where we really felt that I mean, my wife and I were both actors. Um, but we had this story in mind that we felt extremely passionate about and said, you know what, we're going to just figure out how to use a camera. We're going to teach ourselves everything there is to know about filmmaking, how to use camera lenses, how to edit, how to tell a story, how to score. And she and I and a production company in York, Pennsylvania, Everything's Fire, that's helmed by Matt Neese and Doug Henderson. They heard the idea and they immediately signed on. And it's just been over the past 7 years, this intense, just ongoing journey. And it's, yeah, for those who don't know, it's an adventure, drama, psychological thriller. It hits pretty much every single, genre that I love. And it's one of those things where, like, if you're not seeing the work that you want to be in, you got to create it yourself, man, at all costs. And it's taken us 6 years to be able to finally put this out.
Excellent, excellent. And this is a project that I would say the thing that's very fascinating about it is a lot is done with very little. So just that idea of, and for those that know what I'm talking about, let me just give an idea is that there is no dialogue. So, but um, thankfully, with how it's executed, you're still able to connect dots and put pieces together, and things are slowly, as things slowly unravel, you get an idea of additional details as the story continues. So can you talk a bit about that and trying to execute that with, not relying on that crutch of dialogue?
Well, I mean, it's one of those things where, I mean, not only did we not have dialogue, I mean, this was something that we did on zero budget. We didn't have any money to make this. And I feel like you having limitations like that are a beautiful way to think outside the box. You know, there's so many different ways to tell the story that just don't rely on dialogue. I mean, the way a camera moves is just, you can tell such a beautiful story with that. The way you use flashbacks, the way you use sound. This was meant to be a very visceral experience that connected people, really connected people on like the human condition. That was something that was like visceral, exciting, pump up your adrenaline, could shock you. And those are things that we all experience, man. That we don't need to rely on dialogue to be able to do. And there's so many things that are at our fingertips too. Just being the way you use environments that are around you, the times of days, the atmosphere, the weather, all of those things can tell you so much about a character, what's going on in their psychology, what's going on in their heart. And these are things that are available to everyone. You know, you don't need to rely on dialogue to as exposition. You know, it was just, like I said, just a way for us to think outside the box and tell a story that was 5 to 7 minutes in each chapter that would really be gripping.
And in that same regard, in developing, this story, and having that beginning, middle, and end, and breaking it into these portions, in trying to, figure out a way, as you were saying, and still executing that and moving the story along, were there any elements where, or points in the production where, um, you you really had to backtrack and say, okay, I know that I am still trying to, explain the story visually without that reliance, and were there any portions, or times where you felt that you weren't giving enough? If you felt that it was too, what's the word that I'm looking for? Too, gosh,
What do you think?
brain farting on it.
Like,
But yeah, if I'm just being, or say when you were making it, that you were just being too, you weren't being specific enough, or weren't explaining enough visually, what was happening, what you were trying to have come across.
yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the challenging parts, is because since you are telling a story that doesn't have any dialogue in it, I mean, that wasn't really our point. It's like, hey, let's just do something without dialogue. It was, okay, so these characters are just really out in the wilderness. I love westerns. I love people who are just I love those stories about men and women who are just out there in the middle of nowhere battling the elements because all they have is just time. And when you have all of that time, man, the things that your mind does to you, it really just eats you away. Just isolation is so it's just so dangerous. It can just really rip you apart. So I really wanted to explore that aspect of it, the psychological part. But the things that we carry with us physically, the things that we carry in our hearts, in our minds, things, objects like a wedding ring, they have so much memory to them already. They already have a story. If your dad gave you, a watch or something like that, that when you were a kid and he told you, like, this is this is your birthright, this is yours, when I pass away, this is going to be yours. I mean, you're not going to sell that for any amount of money. So it's just the weight of that is just I think it's beautiful. You don't need words to be able to do that. But along with that, the technical side is we had to be able to tell a story that hit emotional beats at very specific times for the audience to be able to feel something at a specific time, but also to show you what the character was experiencing at that time. And that's very challenging. You got to be clinical with that. I think the only time that we actually use any sort of dialogue in there, it's actually spoken in a completely different language. And actually, the language that I did for it, I had to do a lot of research for it. It's actually ancient Javanese. So I had to get in touch with people in Bali and just search high and low for someone who just could speak this ancient language and say, can you translate this for me? Can you show me how to pronounce it? But even when you're hearing that dialogue, hearing that, it's supposed to create a visceral reaction so that you don't even understand what this person is saying, but with the inflections, with the tone, the way it's being spoken, like it's revealing so much.
Definitely. And I mean, you commented on just now that idea of grief, and how each of us, embody that, in however way that manifests or materializes. Um, can you talk a little further on that? Because, that aspect was fascinating to observe, where that what the protagonist is dealing with in terms of their grief and that loss, how that manifests itself in various parts of the story.
Yeah, I mean, you feel the grief just right off the bat. I mean, so the movie starts out with a quote from the Odyssey,
Right.
and essentially it says, for those of you who don't know the Odyssey, I mean, it's Homer's epic, and it's a soldier who Odysseus, who's been away from his family, he's been off fighting in the Trojan War, and then he goes through this intense, perilous voyage to try to get back home to his family. He loses all of his men. The gods are just pulling him back and forth, but during this time, through this 20-year journey of trying to get home, he makes it back to his family. And so in this quote, it's essentially talking about how Odysseus got his name. His grandfather gave him the name, and he says, essentially he says that in my life, I've gone through so much pain and tragedy. I've caused so much pain and tragedy to other people as well. I'm going to name you Odysseus, which means the son of pain. And you know what? That's going to be a name you earn in full. And that really struck me, because not only does Odysseus, is he a character that at first, when you're growing up, like, I thought he was like, oh my gosh, he's the alpha male. This is who a guy is supposed to be. His dedication to his family, dedication to his men. But then growing up, and as you grow older, you recognize, well, damn, being a man is not easy. Being a husband is not easy. Being a father is not easy. You're very capable of doing horrific things to the people that you love. So this character, Odysseus, not only does he go through so much pain and hardship going home, but he causes so much damage to those around him. Once he gets back home to Ithaca, he slaughters pretty much all the men there. All the mothers, all the daughters. They don't have anyone to carry on their legacies. And that was deeply, deeply terrifying to me, that concept. So this journey, you experience grief right off the bat. You see what's going on, and you feel that. That's something that everyone experiences, and you start seeing these flashes of just small things that are happening in his memory that are visceral, things that you can touch with your body, things that you feel, and then you start diving further into what this guilt is over grief, this survivor guilt, this concept of PTSD, this idea of, are things completely black and white as you want them to be? Are there times when, how much are you responsible for? How much are the people that you love responsible for causing a tragedy? And then it's, well, how much does your belief in a higher power, how does that relate to? So, you're seeing this character go through this intense survivor guilt through the whole time, but I trust the audience to be able to start piecing information as it goes along too. You find out that that it's much deeper than you expected off that first chapter.
Definitely, definitely. So now that you have, as I said, the final piece hasn't been released out to the public as of yet, but going forward, what do you picture would be the next step, for this story? What are the plans in continuing, this story?
Yeah.
If it's too early, maybe it's too early, but if not, I'd love to know.
Yeah, well, what I plan to do, it's a bit crazy. So so it was great with these 4 chapters. We shared them with Eduardo Sanchez. He's he was the director of the Blair Witch Project. He's a big supporter of independent film in this area, and I shared it with him, and he loved it. He really, really enjoyed it, and once he heard my pitch for what the second season is and what the future seasons were, he was just even more intense about what we can do with this project. What we want to do is we want to be able to share it with as many people as possible now. We're not really making a dime off of it. It's just we adore this story so much that we want to be able to remove any sort of barrier for you to be able to watch it. Now, what we want to do for a second season, once we want to develop like more people in there, oh my gosh, we're planning on filming in Bali. We want to film all up and down the East Coast. This has been something that we filmed in, in four states already. We filmed in North Carolina, Maryland, Virginia, DC. Actually, not DC, but Pennsylvania. Um, our hope is to be able to shoot the next season in Bali, to be able to use, I love that island. The people there, they all work with their hands. They're all artists. The opportunity to work with artists from another country, that's just mind blowing, to understand what their experiences is. A big part of this movie, this series delves into Balinese Hindu mythology. And people aren't fully aware of, what that might be or what that's like. And Bali, they just appreciate what your father passed down to you and what that grandfather passed down to you, and that the art is so rooted in the history of the family. So the idea of being able to take a production over to Bali in a place like that and film there, that's just an incredible dream to be made, man.
Absolutely. So with that being said, man, again, thanks so much for coming on and talking about this mini series. Can you tell folks where not only they can find the film, but where they can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you want to see the Facebook page, it's facebook.com/, ITHACA Miniseries. If you want to find the series on YouTube, if you just type in Ithaca Miniseries or Man in the Arena Films, you're going to see chapters 1, 2, and 3. Our fourth chapter is releasing this Wednesday, and that's going to be our season finale, our season 1 finale. And you'll be in the loop with Troy. You're going to see everything that Brandon has seen.
Awesome stuff. And I'm going to correct myself. I said film. I meant to say miniseries. I'm saying film because it is quite cinematic. So it's already stuck in my head as a film.
Yeah, I do the same thing too, man.
But yes, miniseries. But with that being said, I want to thank again Jay Saunders for coming on Movers and Shakers Unlimited. I'm your host, Brandon Troy. You can find us here on Facebook, obviously, as you're watching now live. But you also can find us on Instagram at Movers Shakers Unlimited, Twitter, Move and Shake UNLTD. You can find me, Brandon Troy, ENT on Twitter, and Brandon Troy _ ENT on Instagram. So there you guys have it. Thanks so much for watching. Be safe out there and see you soon. Bye.